So we're talking about funerals and burials. So before the pandemic, Father Bob and I planned to present this topic to St. Anne's Parish. We had so many discussions in his living room when he learned I joined the bereavement ministry. He had so many questions about my career in the cemetery and mortuary industry that I worked in. Whenever we saw each other, he would raise his index finger off the armrest of his wheelchair and nod his head, reminding me to wait. That day is here. In honor of his legacy tonight's presentation is the Catholic Traditions for Funerals and Burials. A little bit about me. I was going to walk around, but you can't hear me. You know, my first career started when I was 54. At the time, I honestly thought my life had settled into a peaceful rhythm. I was a stay-at-home mom, with 3 wonderful kids, 2 boys and a girl, all grown and doing well. My husband and I had just celebrated our 34th wedding anniversary. We were retired, we were grandparents, and we had 2 beautiful granddaughters. And we spent our days traveling and enjoying family. Life felt full, steady, and blessed. And then everything changed. In November of that year, my husband went in for what we thought was a simple procedure. 3 days later, a pulmonary blood clot took his life. The morning before, he had looked at me with this peaceful, knowing smile and said, "Everything's going to be okay. I'll always take care of you." At the time, I didn't understand the weight of those words. But they became the promise I held on to when everything else fell apart. The first week was... First week. Oh, sorry. I'm going to make this come up a little. The first week was a blur. I couldn't bring myself to call the mortuary. I was in shock, moving through each day in a fog. Eventually, I began journaling and trying to make sense of the pain, writing down every thought and prayer. It was my way of breathing again. Looking back, I see now that even in my grief, God was at work. He was gently shaping something new in me, something I couldn't yet see. During the funeral arrangements, someone at Rose Hills Memorial Park and Cemetery.
Cuts in and out.
It's going in?
It cuts in and out all the time.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
What fun. I'll get used to it. I'll time it better. Someone at Rose Hills Memorial Park and Cemetery offered me a position. I remember thinking, absolutely not. I was still raw and still grieving. The idea of helping other families through loss felt impossible. But that seed was planted. Over time, the Holy Spirit kept nudging me, softly and persistently. It took a full year before I finally said yes. And when I did, it wasn't because I felt strong. It was because I surrendered. I trusted that maybe, just maybe, God was calling me to something deeper. For the next 15 years, I worked as a family service counselor and interment specialist at Rose Hills. I sat with families in their deepest, darkest hours. I listened to their stories, I prayed with them, and I helped them find peace in the chaos and the loss. Every time I offered comfort, I could feel God's hand reminding me, see, that is how healing begins. What started as heartbreak became my ministry, a journey of faith restored, hope renewed, and life transformed. And my husband's passing led me to find purpose. St. Anne's Church Bereavement Ministry. In 2017, I moved to Seal Beach, and my first encounter was walking to Mass, oblivious to my new journey that was just away from the door to St. Anne's Church on Sunday morning. I am grateful for my new parishioners that embraced me as a new member of St. Anne's, and I joined the Women's Guild. When Anne Bluth struck up a conversation, we quickly realized my talents. Father Bob and Anne took me under their wing and plopped me right into the bereavement ministry. My yes this time was immediate. St. Anne's Bereavement Ministry, under the direction of Father John, helps families with the selection of Mass liturgy readings and music. Are there any bereavement members that could stand up? Just stand for a minute. We are so honored to be with families. Thank you. It is an honor for me these past 8 years to be in quiet service to grieving families, and I hold a special place in my heart for families trying to plan their loved ones' funerals. I came across an online, you know what, I haven't been doing this. I bet you're surprised. So there's, we didn't miss me. I came across an online newsletter named Pardon the Question. What appealed to me is the prompts on how to start difficult conversations with family members. So, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Pardon the question, but have you had a conversation about your final wishes?
Yes. Yes.
So, settle back and take a ride with me. We are going to cover the surface of what you want for your final wishes. I hope you walk away with a better understanding of our beliefs in burials and funerals. Let's begin. Your personal choices are private, and you do not need to speak out your answer. Pause and consider what feels right for you. Let's skim over some of your final wishes. Do you prefer ground burial or cremation? Before you choose scattering, the Catholic Church does not approve that cremated remains be divided or scattered. They must be kept together, placed in a sacred space, such as a cemetery, a mausoleum or columbarium, not kept on the fireplace mantle or turned into jewelry. So tonight, this is what we're going to cover. Definitions and essentials. Options. So we're going to talk about mortuaries, cemeteries, and then in your hand are 3 handouts. Now the reason I did these 3 documents is because in the 15 years that I was meeting with families, those were the stumbling block. So finding these documents will shorten the process on the day you need to search for them. The handout called the Vital Statistics caused many delays because no one knew Mom's maiden name. Social Security for the person you're making arrangements for, or the birthplace of each parent. So we're going to talk about the military benefit. A DD 214 provides a free burial space in a VA cemetery, a free marker, and a free flag. And if your military status is a candidate for TAPS or 21 gun salute, it will be scheduled for burial. So many families know where the DD 214 form is, but that's the person that has the document. Sometimes we put it away with special things, and then the day you walk into the funeral home, you can't find it. And then you can't get those benefits. So that's why I'm highlighting it tonight. So let's just talk about what I just covered. I asked you one about ground burial, then I asked you about cremation. So the first slide is a mausoleum. Now that is an opening a drawer for a casket. You can hold one casket or two caskets in the drawer. The second one is a traditional ground burial. We're used to seeing that. The one with the flower arrangements is, many people forget that we have urn gardens, and that is for two urns in one space, but it's a small space, and it's more economical. The last picture is a columbarium. A columbarium is a place of a glass front so that you put the urn into the wall, and then you can have a photo or mementos that you can see into it. Unlike the mausoleum here, you couldn't see anything, but some people like to have the looking opening. So that's a columbarium, and they're more precipice. So she has been spending the whole night looking for the DD 214. And she couldn't find it. So let's start a file. We have thought about ground burial and cremation tonight. We've thought about a casket or an urn. So once those two things have been settled on your heart and what you really want to do, I now am offering you the second handout, which is called The Right of Disposition of Burial. And the reason it is important is for your final arrangements. So no one knew until they got into my office, because I was an interment specialist, that I would sit down and I would say, and who in the room has the right for the legal authority? And so let's just take me. So in my case, my husband would have it automatically right. If I don't have paperwork or documents, healthcare directive, power of attorney, and for some reason nothing's been discussed, my husband would have the right to make my arrangements. After my husband, it would be my 3 children, and my 3 children, it is given them the right as a majority. And this is why I want to point this out tonight. No one realized when they came into my office, because they didn't know this, that they would tell me the truth before I had to tell them they couldn't do what they were doing. So there would be 3 children, I would learn that early, and then they would say, I don't want to cremate. So now I have a majority, I have to have 2 agree to cremation. And this is because they don't have power of attorney, healthcare directive, they haven't been a piece of paper. I will even accept a piece of paper that said I need to, my choice is to be cremated. And if there is not a spouse or children, then your parents are the next in line. So many people would come in, a brother and a sister, and they'd say, oh, there's nobody else in the family, so I've come in to make my sister's arrangements. But earlier I asked questions before they forgot about the truth they gave me. And I'd say, oh, by the way, you just mentioned. So. And then also when you have significant others, so they also have rights and they can make burial decisions as well. But you just have to know that paper will show you exactly who the relatives are. And then at one point it will actually be your siblings that would make funeral arrangements for you. So the reason I'm telling you is if you're considering your wishes, give your wishes to the right person. Don't give them to the child that is not in agreement with you, especially if you've told them that you want to be cremated. That's the stumbling block, is cremation, because you can't change it. Burial, I've had to lift remains up and cremate and give them back, so we can change our mind, but not with cremation. Okay, so I just put this up here for helping you understand what the mortuaries are. So if I was to ask you how much is a funeral, does anybody want to throw out maybe a number?
15,000.
How much?
815.
10,000.
10 to 12.
According to my research, I came up with 8,300. So what I'm going to help you with today is to see the cost of things. Yes, we can spend 18,000. I bet I spent more than that on my husband's because I wasn't thinking. Now that I'm 15 years trained, I know the things to consider. So to avoid costs of the mortuary, you could do a direct cremation or a direct burial. And that means that you bypass all of these fees that are suggested fees, that are the basic fee of the funeral director, the removal, bringing them into your care, the mortuary care, the embalming. By the way, you do not have to embalm, but it depends on what your services are. You have a facility, you have a funeral coach, casket. So I would think that the casket and the ground space would take you up to 18,000. I think that's what would be the numbers that would bring it past what I've come up with at 8,300. Okay, let's talk about the prepaid. So many of you probably already have your prepaid funeral packages. So what it would include is the mortuary fees and professional fees, transportation permits, chapel and church, funeral coach. This is all inclusive. Everything would be included, including the prayer cards, the memorial cards, the viewing, the prayer service, everything would be included. And then what you would do is one thing, and you seem to be very educated. Everybody's nodding that they already have. So here's kind of a, with the mortuary costs and the things you do on a prepaid, is it's an insurance guarantee program. So you don't have to worry if the mortuary closes, do not worry. You take those funds and now it's a bucket of money. If you go to Rose Hills or to All Souls and you buy a funeral plan, it's guaranteed to their prices. But say one of them closes, you can take it to any mortuary and that will open up the bucket of money to be spent towards your funeral. That's why you're never at risk of thinking about pre-planning. And how many of you prefer to leave your burial and funeral plans for your children to plan? In the 15 years, I had every parent come in and say, no, I'm going to let them do it. They've worried me all my life. So you're very well educated. You really understood that you don't have to do that. So now we've covered the mortuary, so let's talk about the cemetery. There's only 3 or 4 fees in a cemetery. So you have your opening and closing, and what that means is if you buy a ground space, there you go. You open the ground. You open it, put the casket in, and close it by filling it in, putting a marker on it. A vault. All cemeteries require a vault and a marker or a headstone. So those are your cemetery fees. So that will help you if you go to pre-plan. You could just go to the cemetery and buy property and your opening, closing, and your marker and your vault, and you'd be done with that. Then you could go over to your mortuary and buy your other things that you need. But you can shop wisely. You do not have to buy an $18,000 package. It's up to you if you want to. And you can also, I mentioned Good Shepherd, All Souls, Christ Cathedral. Those are the ones that are local, so that you can go make that arrangement. And if you go to Rose Hills, that was non-denominational. With a non-denominational, with a priest or a deacon, they can consecrate the ground, and you can be buried there as well. Now, the reason I did this picture is I wanted to show a casket draped, a flag draped casket. So there are 3 elements to a service. You have your vigil, which is called a wake or a viewing, but don't mix it up, it's all the same thing. And usually a rosary is said the night before. Although at St. Anne's we have done a funeral and started 30 minutes earlier and have a rosary just before the funeral begins. But, and let's cover a funeral mass and a memorial mass. So a funeral mass is when the casket or the urn, the cremains, or the remains are present in the church. It's a memorial mass without the remains being present, but you still get time for personal touches, favorite music, scriptures, and family participation. Now this is the most important slide, and it's too big to read, I think, as I tried it out. So I'm just going to highlight some things. Every family that's come to St. Anne's has asked me about the flower arrangements on top of the casket. And I have to tell them we're not going to put flower arrangements on top of the casket. We'll take them off and leave them in the funeral coach, or bring them up to the altar and I'll put them on a wreath, but we will display your flowers, put it on the casket. So as the liturgy begins, the presider sprinkles the coffin with holy water as a remembrance that in the waters of baptism, Christians receive the pledge of eternal life. Then the coffin is covered with a funeral pall, and that's what it looks like. It's white. It's a sacred garment. It's beautiful, and St. Anne's provides it. So when the casket comes into our entranceway, the vestibule, that's when the pall is put on the casket. So you cannot put flowers or a flag. Both of those will wait because this is more important. So this cloth, which drapes the casket during the liturgy, the pall symbolizes the white baptismal garment that the deceased received on the day of their baptism when they, as St. Paul tells us, put on Christ. The pall is a sign of the Christian dignity of the person and that all are equal in the eyes of God. Now the meaning behind the 3 rites, you have your vigil. That symbolism is lighted candles represent the light of Christ. The funeral mass of Christian burials includes readings, Old Testament and New Testament, homilies, prayers, and Eucharist. The final commendation, incense, honors the body as a temple of the Holy Spirit, and the rite of committal or interment. The symbolism is the body is returned to the earth awaiting resurrection. And then I added some other things that are key things in the 3 specific parts of the Mass or the funeral. Delays can be out of your control. The coroner needs time to process test results, and cremation schedules have to be considered. So if you're met with a delay, there's nothing you can do to jump through the hoops. You have to wait until the funeral home gets the permits and the death certificates, and sometimes it's a disappointment, especially if you're leaving on Saturday for a cruise. I had it happen. piece of the preparation lifts the emotional and financial burdens from your loved ones. Now, here's a story. I hope I'm okay on time. So, my dad was very pleased with himself. He was in his 90s. And he asked me to stop by for a talk. A talk? I thought the worst. Is he sick? It started as a confusing conversation. He started with, all you have to do is order the appetizers for the reception. He had paid for everything. Honestly, I thought that was weird. Who would buy a casket and where would he put it? That was my first encounter with learning my parents' final wishes. So it's really a gift, and it did give me peace of mind. I had no idea that you could pre-plan. It was quite a surprise, but it's quite a benefit. I have skimmed over so much tonight. Keep in mind these documents and decisions. If you are planning a funeral tomorrow morning, are necessary on the day you have to make funeral arrangements. I think I took 30 minutes, and to bring those decisions all on a day, which is the hardest day of your life, it's really handy to just write them down on a piece of paper and put them in a file. We barely touched the surface of planning, helping us learn that planning ahead is not about death. It's about love, dignity, and peace of mind. Thank you for allowing me to share what I've learned through both my personal journey and my 15 years of service. Please email me for further information. I have an email with St. Anne's Church, so it's pchacombe@stantsealbeach.org. So if you have any questions, I didn't let you bring up your questions tonight because of the privacy of what we're talking about. But if you ever have a question, you can always email me. So thank you. You have to see my slides.
Patricia, thank you so much. And you